What are the best and worst quad exercises for strength and muscle growth? In this video, I'll be ranking 25 popular quad exercises. I'll use a tier system with G for goated exercise and P for a pencil neck exercise keeping you small. Unlike most fitness YouTubers, instead of focusing only on bodybuilding and hypertrophy, I'll be ranking these exercises for both strength and size, because in my opinion, function and athleticism are just as important as size and aesthetics. I'll also award one quad building exercise as the GOAT of GOATs and demote one exercise to training purgatory for eternal pencil neck. Now, before we start, for an exercise to be G tier, it must meet these 4 criteria in this order. Uses a large amount of muscle mass, it can be trained through a full range of motion and easily overloaded, has a high degree of tension and stretch, and feels good when performing reps. If it checks these 4 boxes, you know it's a maximally effective GOAT exercise. If it doesn't use a lot of muscle, get you significantly bigger or stronger, cannot easily add weight and reps over a long period of time, or doesn't feel natural, it's immediately relegated into the pencil neck tier. Before we get started, I know I don't have the most impressive quads, and my left quad is smaller than my right quad from a quad tendon injury. But bear in mind, I've had 11 knee surgeries, spent over 3 years in a wheelchair or on crutches, and I'm honestly thankful I can even train my legs. But I'm not one to make excuses, and my legs are stronger than they look. And I wasn't gonna let my lack of quad development keep me from making this video for you guys. Let's start off with 3 of the worst exercises: jump squats, jumping lunges, and stability ball squats. Do you really think anyone built a massive set of legs doing these silly exercises? Absolutely not. Jump squats and jumping lunges are cardio exercises, not muscle building exercises. Sure, they'll make you tired and sweaty, but remember, this isn't your mom's aerobic class. This is about getting strong and jacked. And if you ever see anyone doing stability ball squats to improve balance, just know that person is unintelligent and would get a better workout thumbing their nuts at home. All 3 of these exercises are going into the P tier. Now, other squat variations. First up is the goblet squat. It's easy to learn and reinforces an upright chest and is the first variation I teach to beginners to learn proper mechanics. But you can only squat with a heavy dumbbell for so long before it becomes too difficult and awkward to hold. While the goblet squat is perfect for noobs, and I'm tempted to put it in the B tier, it's going in the C tier only because it's not easily overloadable. And I don't think you'll ever hear anyone bragging about their 1RM goblet squat. But you want to know something you should brag about? The barbell squat. Specifically, I'm talking about the high bar back squat when it's placed higher on your traps, where you maintain a more vertical torso, requiring greater knee bend, targeting more quads. I'm telling you right now, this is a goated exercise. In fact, no other exercise known to man builds more total body strength and muscle than heavy high bar back squats. And while I know gym bros like to compare their bench, the real gym bros compare the squat, because that's the true standard of which all lifters are measured. Remember, there's a reason the squat racks are always empty when you go to the gym. Heavy deep squats are hard, and most dudes avoid them because they're so please don't be like most dudes. Trust me, you'll never find a guy with a double bodyweight squat with small legs. And when your squat is strong, any other leg exercise will be easy or very manageable. Now, what about the low bar squat? Powerlifters and strongmen often incorporate this variation to lift the heaviest weights possible. And while it is a GOAT exercise for strength, I have to put it in the B tier for quads simply because the low bar squat emphasizes less quads and much more low back, glutes, and hamstrings. Just remember, anytime you have a more vertical shin angle, that's more hamstrings and glutes, whereas a more forward shin angle will always emphasize more quads. I also can't forget about safety bar squats. These are usually done by pro athletes or lifters with cranky shoulders. And while this is a great exercise for strength, I don't think it's anything special for quads specifically. I also notice a huge demand on my mid-upper back when doing safety bar squats due to the way the weight is distributed on the bar, taking focus away from the quads. These are going in the B tier. How about the front squat? One thing that's often confused by lifters is that the front squat is better for quad development than high bar back squats because you're forced to maintain a more vertical torso. But I'd argue otherwise. I'm putting the front squat in B tier for quads, and here's why. Studies have shown that high bar back squats have the same amount of quad activation as front squats, and because the front rack position is so much more difficult and uncomfortable compared to a back squat, you're limited by the amount of weight you can lift, resulting in less strength and hypertrophy gains overall. Now, I'm not saying to avoid front squats. In fact, heavy-ass front squats are arguably the hardest strength exercise of all. But unless you're into competitive Olympic weightlifting, you don't really need to do front squats. And if your goal is just to get bigger and stronger quads, which is what this video is about, you'll be far better served with heavier high bar back squats. But if you want to target quads more with squats, try the slant board back squat. And I'm not trying to sound too scientific here by getting into physics or moment arm lengths, but the reason these are a G tier quad exercise is because the slant board raises your heels, pushes your knees further over your toes, creating a more forward shin angle targeting your quads way more than a traditional squat with your heels lower. Don't overthink this exercise. Just take my word for it and give it a try. Start with light weights and consciously think about pushing your knees over your toes during the descent of the squat. And trust me, your quads will feel it. To finish off the barbell exercises, what about the conventional deadlift? While the deadlift is a GOAT exercise for strength, it's not the best exercise for size, especially not quads. Think about it. The deadlift hits your entire posterior chain, mainly your hamstrings, glutes, and low back erectors. But because it involves minimal knee flexion, you're not effectively targeting your quads. So while I'm a huge fan of deadlifts and I highly recommend you do them, don't do them thinking you'll get massive quads. You won't. And while I should put them in the D tier, I'll keep them in the C tier simply because they are very overloadable and will make your entire body strong. Now here's a couple of quad exercises being pushed a lot by calisthenics influencers, and that's the knee over toe squat and the reverse Nordic. Personally, I find both of these exercises gimmicky and they look cooler than they actually are. While you will feel the knee over toe squat a ton in your quads, you'll mainly see people doing them at body weight only because they're too difficult and awkward to overload since there's a huge balance component to them. And while I do think knee over toe squats effectively target quads, I've never heard a dude with massive legs say he got them from doing knee over toe squats. I'm putting these in C tier, and these will be best utilized as a quad finisher, but not as a main exercise. In regards to the reverse Nordic, 99% of people aren't flexible enough to do them properly, and will require some kind of assistance like a band. Plus, these don't feel great to me, almost like an injury waiting to happen. These are going into the D tier. Now what about single leg exercises? Let's cover the first worst and best last, starting off with step-ups, forward lunges, and reverse lunges in place, and walking lunges. I'm putting step-ups in D tier. They're good for beginners and older people who lack the mobility and strength for lunges, but they're not easily overloadable and best done for glutes, not quads. And the same goes for lunges. While I prefer them over step-ups, when I do lunges, I'm never doing them primarily for quads. I'm doing them for glutes. Now, I'm not saying lunges or step-ups don't use your quads because they do, but go grab two 35-pound dumbbells and bang out a set of 20 alternating lunges. And tell me, which muscle do you feel working more, your quads or your glutes? It's your glutes. So for that reason, I'm ranking lunges in the C tier. What about the rear foot elevated split squat? Commonly known as the Bulgarian split squat. This is arguably the greatest single leg exercise of all and has many different variations. Elevating the rear leg places a much greater demand on the front working leg, improving strength, balance, and coordination. The rear foot elevated split squat does a tremendous job of strengthening the entire leg, including the quads, glutes, and hamstrings. And this would easily be my GOAT of GOATs for glute exercises, but for quads, I'm putting it in the B tier. However, you could easily move this exercise into the A tier if you consciously focus on more knee flexion, pushing your knee over your toe to hit more quads. I personally like doing rear foot elevated split squats with a barbell and deficit to lift heavier weights with a greater range of motion. But there's still an incredible exercise using just a bench and dumbbells, which is typically how you'll see them done. Another great single leg exercise is the pistol squat. It's fair to say that if you can competently perform a full range of motion pistol squat, you possess excellent balance and strength. And while this is a popular lower body exercise for calisthenics athletes, it's oftentimes the only form of leg training they do. I have to place it in the B tier because your legs will only grow so much when performing reps with just your body weight. I mean, has a calisthenics guy ever got famous for huge legs? No. But if you do want to take your pistol squat to the next level, then aim for the weighted pistol squat. I would have to say this is the most challenging single leg exercise of all, as it requires a tremendous amount of balance, stability, and strength. While I'm tempted to put this in the G tier, I have to put the weighted pistol squat in the A tier for quads because just like the rear foot elevated split squat, there's a huge demand on the glutes when performing this exercise. And from a personal experience, my glutes get way more sore than my quads. But I will say that anyone banging out weighted pistol squats for reps is going to have great overall leg development. I just can't put it in the G tier because it's not my favorite exercise due to its inherent instability, it's difficult to overload, and it doesn't always feel the best on the knees. Now, what we've all been waiting for. Let's talk machines. We have to start with the first exercise every lifter thinks about when training quads, and that's the leg extension. I have mixed feelings about the leg extension because I personally rarely do it since I don't have one in my gym. But I cannot argue that it's extremely effective at targeting all four heads of the quadriceps, especially the rectus femoris and the famed teardrop muscle known as the vastus medialis. This is a tricky exercise to rank. I don't consider it a G tier exercise because how long can you really train and get stronger at a leg extension? 6 to 8 week tops? But on the other hand, how long can you train and get stronger at your squat? 15 to 20 years even. Because the leg extension is a single joint exercise, it's difficult to progressively overload. After all, how often are you going into the gym to max out your leg extension? Not very often. But as I said before, the leg extension is the only exercise to effectively target all 4 heads of the quadriceps. So if you want to maximize quad hypertrophy, especially your teardrop muscle, I do feel this is an essential exercise to include in your routine. It's going in the A tier. And here's a quick tip. And I'm not trying to sound like too much of a science nerd here, but if you want to make your leg extensions maximally effective, adjust the machine to lean as far back as possible to maximize the stretch-mediated hypertrophy effect. And of course, we must talk about the 45-degree leg press. While this is a great exercise for overall leg development, it's not my favorite for quad development. While you can target your quads more with a narrower stance near the bottom of the foot plate, I still find myself forced to engage too much glutes for my liking, and there are better options. This one's going in the B tier. You've also got single leg press, another variation that's just okay. While this may work for evening out imbalances or asymmetries between legs, you're still forced to use too much glute. Going heavy feels awkward to me, and the rear foot elevated split squat is a superior choice. These are going C tier. Now last and least is the horizontal leg press. These are going D tier. When I see this machine, I immediately think of old fat ladies. I think because this is one of the easiest and consequently least effective quad builders in the gym. Now for old fat ladies or weaklings in general, it's fine. But if you're serious about building big legs, it's generally not recommended. All right, let's move on to some goated quad machines. And the first one is the pendulum squat. I'm a barbell guy at heart, but the pendulum squat hammers your quads specifically, and it's honestly one of my favorite squat variations ever. It's super comfortable and allows you to get in a super deep squat, comfortably maximizing quad hypertrophy. If your gym has a pendulum squat machine, use it. Now let's talk about the hack squat. I love hack squats. Another one of my all-time favorite squat variations and extremely effective for targeting the quads. One common mistake to avoid is placing your feet too high and too wide on the foot plate. To maximize quad activation, place your feet lower on the foot plate with a narrow stance and squat as deep as possible. The quad father Tom Platz and Dorian Yates swear by hack squats, and there's a reason for that. All right, we got just 3 more exercises to cover, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about sissy squats. I know a lot of fitness influencers like them, but I just have to say these never felt great to me. Maybe it's because of all my knee surgeries and I find them painful, but even then, this is a difficult exercise to overload and I just don't like them. D tier. I must also include exercises like thrusters or a lunge to press. Any movement that tries to combine 2 exercises into one are generally pretty shitty. You're just making things more complicated than they need to be. And when you try to combine 2 exercises into one, you're doing neither exercise well. And just think about it. When doing a thruster, which is just a squat to press, you'll never be able to lift a heavy enough weight to stimulate gains in your quads because you're limiting yourself by how much your shoulders can press overhead to complete the rep. And your quads will always be much stronger than your shoulders. These are going straight to the P tier. Now last, but certainly not least, is the Smith machine squat. Similar to the pendulum and hack squat, this is a goated exercise for quads. There's a reason you see C-Bum crushing heavy Smith machine squats, and that's because these are arguably the greatest quad builder of them all. I love the Smith machine for bodybuilding due to the added stability and smooth resistance curve. It's ideal for hypertrophy. And to maximally target your quads, move your feet forward, maintain a vertical torso, and squat as deep as possible every rep. To me, these are essentially just vertical hack squats. Incredible feel and range of motion. G tier, no question. So out of all the goated exercises, if I have to choose just one for the goat of goats, I know this will come as no surprise to you all, but it's gonna be the high bar back squat. I've said it many times before, the barbell squat is the king of all exercises. No other exercise is gonna build more strength and muscle than deep, heavy back squats. And I'll be honest, I was deliberating hard between the Smith machine, pendulum, and hack squat, and if quad hypertrophy was the sole criteria I was ranking, I would put either of those 3 as my goat of goats because they are incredible exercises and I plan to incorporate more of them into my own training in the future. But again, since I'm not a bodybuilder and care more about strength and performance than I do hypertrophy, I have to stay true to who I am as a lifter, and if you just get a big back squat, not only will you have big and strong legs, but you'll have a big and strong body and mind. Now, if I have to choose one quad exercise to relegate to training purgatory for eternal pencil neck, it would have to be the stability ball squat. These don't make you stronger or really better at anything, and the risk of doing this stupid exercise far outweighs the reward, since there really is none. Squatting on unstable surfaces is never a good idea, and if you really want to improve balance and stability, just get stronger. By simply getting stronger, you're literally going to get better at everything. And that's the truth. If you enjoyed this video and you want to get bigger and stronger yourself, definitely try out my best-selling 12-week Natty Bulk program. It includes a free meal plan, a state-of-the-art training app, and direct unlimited access to me. I'll put the link here next to my head. And if you got value out of this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to see my top back exercises, check out this video here.